Most condo and townhome buyers in Kelowna and West Kelowna right now, they think that they have a ton of time. And honestly, I get it. For the last few years, the condo market has been slow. Buyers have had a ton of options and sellers have had to chop prices. And almost every headline about condos across Canada has made it sound like there's blood in the streets. So if you're a buyer watching from the outside, the natural assumption is that you don't need to rush. There are a ton of condos. There are a lot of townhomes. I'm just going to wait for the perfect one. But here is the issue. Outside of new construction, that assumption in Kelowna right now is wrong. Overall, the market might look slow on the surface, but when you start looking closer, you'll see that the condos that people actually want are getting harder and harder to find. Last week, there were 52 new condo listings. That sounds like a lot, but once you remove the properties that were just canceled and then relisted, there were only 36 new to market condo listings. And here's the issue. There were 30 condo sales. For townhomes, there were 22 new listings, but only 15 were actually new, and there were 16 sales. So buyers are watching the market, waiting for the perfect home. But in reality, the perfect home, it might have been the one they just saw. Now, that doesn't mean that every condo is suddenly going to sell overnight. It also doesn't mean that buyers should panic. And it definitely doesn't mean that every listing is a good deal. There are still a lot of overpriced condos. There are still a lot of stale listings. Some condos and townhomes, they're sitting for a reason. But if you're looking for the perfect condo, the one that shows well, is priced right, has a good layout, good location, reasonable strata fees, you're looking for the same condo that everybody else is right now. I'm Mark, a condo specialist with RE/MAX, and in this video, I want to show you what's actually happening in the condo market, why buyers are getting squeezed without even realizing it. The first thing that buyers need to understand is this. There's a difference between the headline market and the real market. The headline market is often nationally focused, and it's about new condos. Condos aren't selling. Inventory is the highest it has been in decades. Nobody's buying. These things are true, especially in Toronto and Vancouver, where they have thousands and thousands of unsold new construction condos. But the local market here is much more specific. The local market is the market that you are actually shopping in. Your price range, your preferred area, your building type, your pet requirements, your layout. This is where things change, because a buyer can go online today and see 900 condo listings. But once they put in their actual life filters, that list, it's going to get small fast. Maybe they want a 2-bedroom condo that's over 1,100 square feet. Maybe they want something walkable. Maybe they have a large dog, or they want a newer townhome with a double garage. Maybe they want something that's move-in ready. All of a sudden, that lots of inventory, it turns into 6 options. Then 2 of them are overpriced. 1 has high strata fees. 1 has an awkward layout. 1's been sitting for months. And the one that you want has 5 showings the same day that you view it. That's the real market. And that's where buyers are getting confused. They're hearing that there's tons of inventory, but when something good hits the market, it sells fast. Because here's the truth. Most buyers, they want the same condo. The second thing that buyers need to understand is that new listings are misleading. A lot of people watch the number of new listings and they think, good, more new listings are coming. But not every new listing is actually new. 25% of new listings have just been canceled and relisted. Maybe the realtor changed the price. Maybe the realtor changed the front photo. That matters, because when a buyer sees 52 new condo listings in a week, they think 52 potential homes just hit the market. But last week, only 36 were actually new. That means that 16 of those new condo listings were ones that you've already seen. Same thing with townhomes. 22 new listings, 15 were actually new. So the market, it can look like it's giving buyers a lot more choice than it really is. This creates false optimism. A buyer sees all these listings popping up and they think they can just wait because more keeps coming. But if a big chunk of what keeps coming is the same inventory just being reintroduced, then buyers are not getting as much ground as they think. They're seeing the same options in a new wrapper. And that's one of the biggest reasons that this market is difficult right now. Let's talk about the part that really matters. Absorption. How much of the new inventory is actually being bought? Last week, the market, there were 36 new listings and 30 sales. That means that a large share of the condo inventory, it was absorbed right away. In the townhome market, there were 15 new listings and 16 sales. More townhomes were sold than were added. Again, that doesn't mean that every listing's selling, but it does mean that the best ones are. And that's the warning sign. Tenanted properties, they can sit. Overpriced listings can sit. Condos that show poorly almost always sit. But the nice condos that are priced right, they're starting to stand out. And when they stand out, buyers notice. And then the market slowly starts to shift. Not all at once, quietly. First, the best listings get more showings. Then they start selling faster. Then the sellers get a little more confident. When sellers get confident, buyers have less room to negotiate. Then suddenly, the 3 condos on your shortlist are gone. By the time some buyers figure this out, the best condos have already sold. That's why this moment matters. The shift doesn't start with the headlines. It starts when good options start disappearing fast. One of the hardest parts about this market is that a lot of buyers are nervous because they don't want to make a mistake and they fear that the market is still going down. They think they can wait. They're not in a hurry. They feel like they can make a low offer. And if I miss this one, another one's going to come. The prices, they might go lower anyway. That mindset, it made sense when there were 3 new listings for every 1 sale. A buyer's market looks like this. 90 new listings last week, only 30 sales. But the closer that number, it gets to 1-to-1, the more pressure buyers are going to face. Because when the market turns, prices don't just jump overnight. They start to show up in smaller ways first. The best listings, they sell before you see them. And then sellers become less flexible. A seller's a lot more confident when they've had 7 showings in the first week and they've received an offer. There are still options, but the quality of those options is getting lower. And that is the hidden cost of waiting. Most stats you're going to see, they highlight the average price. But usually, the first thing to change is the selection, then the negotiating power, then the price. The good ones, they disappear first. And once the good ones start disappearing, the market starts to feel very different for buyers who are actively in it. So the question isn't, is the condo market up or down? The question is, are the properties that I actually want selling or sitting? Right now, if a condo or townhome in Kelowna is priced well and it shows well, it will sell. So I want to be clear on something. I'm not saying all condos are equal. This is where buyers can get caught. They might hear me say that, good condos are getting harder to find. Then they think they're still seeing so many listings online. And both can be true. There can be a lot for sale and still not a lot worth buying. Most properties that are sitting for a reason. They could be overpriced. Maybe the unit looked better in the photos. The strata fees are too high. Maybe there's building issues. Could even be that the floor plan is awkward. Those properties are going to continue to sit, even when the market starts improving. This is why headlines can hurt you when you're trying to buy. The headline might say that the inventory is high, but it doesn't tell you whether the inventory is any good. And buyers that I talk to, they're not just looking for a condo. They're looking for the best condo, the best building, the best layout, the best location, and the best price. But here's the thing that I want you to take away from this. All the other buyers are looking for the best condo as well. This is where working with a realtor that you trust really matters. Because if you're only checking realtor.ca, you're passively watching the real estate market. But when you actively watch the market, you know what's being recycled, what's selling, and what's sitting. When you're looking to buy, the most important listings are the ones that sell. The sold properties, they're going to tell you how competitive the market is for the condo that you're looking for. If you're looking for a condo or townhome and you want help identifying how hot the market is in what you're looking at, reach out and we can have a good conversation about what you're looking for. I can set you up on a search that'll send you all the sold properties as well as any new listings, because you don't need to wait until you're touring condos to get educated on the condo market. The right information gives you confidence. The wrong information, it gives you confusion. So now, the reason this matters so much is because markets shift before headlines change. The headlines are always late. Nobody's going to send out a notice saying that today is the day that buyers have less leverage. It's going to happen gradually. The best listings are going to sell. There are going to be less price reductions. Sellers are going to get more showings. Buyers are going to start competing for the same condos. It could be a year or 2 years before the news starts talking about it. That's why today's market is so confusing for buyers. And again, I want to clarify. I'm not saying that you should rush. I'm saying that you should be ready. There is a big difference. Rushing is emotional. Being ready is strategic. So if I were buying a condo or townhome right now, this is what I would do. First, I would be very clear on what I want. Not just, I want a nice condo. I would know the areas, the price ranges, the type of building, what are must-haves, and what are deal breakers. Because if you're unclear, you're going to need to take time to think about it. And if you need to take time when you find the right one, someone else may not. Second, I would study the last few months of sold inventory. Why did it sell? How long did it take to sell? Were there price reductions until it hit market value? This is going to show you the type of market that you're looking in. Third, I would pay attention to how many condos are new and how many are just recycled. When something hits the market, I would want to know, is this actually new? Or was it just canceled and relisted? Has the price changed? How does this compare to the condos that sold? Is this one of the better options, or is it just another listing? Because that context matters. Fourth, I would have the boring stuff like financing and knowing how the offer process works before I start looking. Because when a great condo comes up, the prepared buyer has an advantage. They don't need 3 days to decide to write an offer because they already know the process. Now, this doesn't mean that they overpay. It means that they can recognize value faster than everyone else. Remember, the goal isn't to just buy a condo. It's to buy the best condo. This is what separates a strategic buyer from a reactive buyer. Now, if you're a seller, you should be paying attention to this too, because this isn't a market where you can just price it high and see what happens. Buyers are selective and they are still cautious. They are still looking for the best condo. And if you're selling a condo or townhome, the opportunity is in the positioning. The price, it has to be attractive. The presentation has to be strong because first impressions matter. The photos matter. Here's a pro tip. If your photos make a room show larger than it actually is, you've already lost. When a buyer walks in and they say to me, wow, this looks way smaller than it did online, they feel like they've been deceived, and that is going to hurt you. The goal of the photo is to get the buyer interested and to get a viewing. The goal of the viewing is to get an offer. If the viewing doesn't meet the expectations that the photo set, you're not going to get an offer. You're probably going to get feedback. Buyers might be getting squeezed for quality, but they aren't frantic like they were 5 years ago. They're more cautious today than they have ever been. And the fast-selling condos in this market, they usually have 3 things working together. They show well, they're in popular areas or buildings, and they're priced right. When those 3 things align, you get a sale. Not because the condo market's booming, but because good condos are getting harder and harder to find. So here's the takeaway. The condo and townhome market, it may still look slow from the outside, and that's the problem. If you take 10 listings, 3 of them might be overpriced. 3, they might show poorly. 1 might be in a bad building, and 1 might have high strata fees. That leaves 2 condos that might make the buyer shortlist. Some micro markets, they have a lot of buyers looking. Some don't. Your goal is to figure out which market are you looking at. Last week, there were 52 condos that came to market, but only 36 were actually new, and there were 30 sales. Again, townhomes, 22 new listings, but 15 were actually new, and there were 16 sales. This is where the squeeze is happening. And this is the first time that I've seen this in years. And if it doesn't change, buyers are going to end up settling or paying more. If it does change and the inventory starts to climb, I promise I'll do a video on that. If you're thinking about buying or selling a condo or townhome, reach out. I can help you look at what's happening in your specific market, not just what the headlines are saying. Because in this market, the right information helps you make the right decision. And the right information doesn't come from Google or ChatGPT. It comes from studying the local market at a building by building, unit by unit level. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.